He noticed a strange lump on the alien girl's back. When it burst, he couldn't believe. Alaric Mercer wiped sweat from his brow as he finished setting the broken arm of a burly miner. The clinic's air conditioning struggled against the planet's relentless heat, making the small examination room feel like a sauna. "Keep it in the cast for 6 weeks, Geordie. And for fuck's sake, stop arm wrestling the power loaders," Alaric said, scribbling a prescription for pain meds. "Doc, you know those loader jockeys need to be taken down a peg?" Geordie replied with a lopsided grin, flexing his good arm. "Next time, I'll use the left one." Alaric shook his head. "There's always one in every outpost. Get out of here, you animal." As the miner lumbered out, Alaric leaned against the counter and surveyed his domain, a converted prefab module on the dusty outskirts of New Prosperity, a mining colony that had yet to live up to its name. The clinic consisted of 2 exam rooms, a small surgical suite, and an office that doubled as his living quarters. Not exactly the prestigious medical career he'd envisioned back on Earth, but it paid the bills. He was organizing supplies when the front door burst open with such force it slammed against the wall. Alaric's hand instinctively moved toward the stunner he kept under the counter. Frontier medicine sometimes required dealing with delirious miners or the occasional claim jumper with a bullet wound. But what stumbled through his door wasn't human. A female alien stood there, her deep blue skin glistening with sweat, silver blue hair cascading over bare shoulders. She wore a tattered skirt and crop top that had seen better days. Her eyes, large, almond-shaped, and a startling violet, darted around the room before settling on him. "Help," she managed in accented English. "Please." Alaric had seen ceruleans before. They were among the few alien species that maintained diplomatic relations with Earth, but never this close, and never one looking so terrified. She took a hesitant step forward, then winced, her right arm reaching awkwardly behind her back to scratch at something. As she turned slightly, Alaric spotted what appeared to be a large, angry growth protruding from her lower back, just above her waistline. The lump was covered in red, bumpy skin that stood in stark contrast to her blue complexion. I'm Dr. Mercer," he said, finding his voice. "What's your name?" "Lycia," she replied, her voice melodic despite the strain. "It hurts, burns, itches." She twisted again, trying to reach the growth. "Let me take a look," Alaric said, gesturing toward the exam room. "I haven't treated many ceruleans, but I'll do what I can." Lycia nodded and followed him, her movements graceful despite her obvious discomfort. The flexibility of her spine as she moved was remarkable, almost serpentine in its fluidity. "How long have you had this growth?" Alaric asked as he pulled on gloves. 3 cycles, she said, then clarified. "About 20 Earth days." Started small. "Now," she gestured helplessly. "Lie on your stomach, please," Alaric instructed, patting the examination table. Lycia complied, turning her face toward him as she settled on the table. Up close, her features were delicate, with high cheekbones and a slightly pointed chin. Her skin had a subtle iridescence that shifted with her breathing. "I'm going to touch it now," Alaric warned, reaching toward the growth. The lump was hot to the touch and felt taut, as if something inside was pushing outward. When he applied gentle pressure, Lycia hissed in pain. "Sorry," he murmured, reaching for a scanner. The device hummed as it passed over the growth, but the readings made little sense. The tissue composition was unlike anything in his database. "This isn't in any of my reference materials," Alaric admitted. "I think I should contact the medical center in the capital. They might have specialists who—" "No!" Lycia jerked upright, her eyes wide with panic. "No authorities! Please, they will take me." "Take you? Are you in some kind of trouble?" She looked away. "I escaped from research facility. Her voice broke. "They do things to us." Alaric's jaw tightened. He'd heard rumors about black market xenobiology labs operating in the outer colonies, but he'd dismissed them as frontier paranoia. "Okay, no authorities," he promised, "but I need to examine this more closely. I'm going to use a local anesthetic and take a small tissue sample." Lycia nodded, lying back down. As Alaric prepared the injection, he noticed her watching him with a mixture of fear and something else. Hope, perhaps. "This will sting," he warned, administering the anesthetic around the growth. While waiting for it to take effect, he asked, "How did you end up at my clinic?" "We're pretty far from anything resembling civilization." "Heard miners talk. Said doctor here doesn't ask questions." She gave him a weak smile. "Said you're a good man." Alaric felt a flush of pride at that. "Well, I try. The miners are a rough bunch, but they're honest in their way." Once the area was numb, Alaric prepared a surgical tool to take a biopsy, but as he brought the instrument near the growth, something extraordinary happened. The red, bumpy skin of the lump suddenly tensed and then split with a wet popping sound. Alaric jumped back as fluid sprayed from the opening, and something small and writhing tumbled onto the examination table. "Holy shit!" Alaric exclaimed, staring in disbelief. The creature that had emerged was no larger than a kitten, with moist, mottled skin in shades of blue and purple. It had 4 tiny limbs ending in delicate digits, a bulbous head with enormous eyes, and what appeared to be gill-like structures on its neck. It opened a small mouth and emitted a high-pitched screech. Lucia twisted around, her eyes widening at the sight of the creature. She whispered something in her native language, a melodic sound that seemed to calm the small being. What is that?" Alaric asked, his medical training temporarily abandoned in the face of this unprecedented situation. Lucia reached out with trembling fingers to touch the small creature, which immediately quieted and curled toward her hand. "It is Calidri," she said, using a word Alaric's translator couldn't process. "I did not know. I did not understand." Her eyes filled with tears. "They did not tell me." The small creature made a chirping sound and crawled toward Lycia, leaving a trail of bluish fluid on the examination table. It nuzzled against her hand, its enormous eyes blinking up at her. Alaric stood frozen, his mind racing to make sense of what he had just witnessed. In all his medical training, nothing had prepared him for this moment. He felt a strange sense of responsibility settle over him, along with a growing fascination. "Lycia," he said carefully, "I think you'd better tell me exactly what happened at that research facility." She met his gaze, fear and relief warring in her expression. "Yes," she agreed softly, "but first help Caladri. Please." As Alaric reached for a clean towel to wrap the small creature, he knew with absolute certainty that his life and the future of the colony had just changed forever. "We need to move," Lycia said urgently, cradling the tiny Calidri against her chest. The creature had calmed, its enormous eyes now half closed as it nestled against her warmth. Alaric was still processing what he'd witnessed. "Move? Where? And why exactly are people looking for you?" Lycia's violet eyes darted to the window. "The Vexari. They run the research facility. Her voice faltered. "They collect species, study reproduction. They discovered something special about ceruleans." "And that would be?" Alaric asked, already gathering medical supplies into a portable kit. Lucia stroked the Caladri's head with a delicate finger. "We carry our young differently than most species. The Caladri grows outside the body in a special pouch that forms on our backs. The Vexari found that our reproductive biology can be manipulated." Alaric paused, medical kit in hand. "Manipulated how?" "To carry other species' genetic material. To birth creatures that are not our own." Her eyes welled with tears. "I was taken 6 months ago. They did not tell me what they put inside me." "Damn," Alaric muttered. "That's beyond unethical. It's monstrous." A bitter smile crossed Lycia's face. "Humans have strange ideas about ethics. The Vexari believe the advancement of knowledge justifies all means." "Not in my book," Alaric said firmly. He moved closer, examining the now empty pouch on her back. The edges were already beginning to close, the angry redness fading. "Does it still hurt?" "No, just tender." She shifted and Alaric became acutely aware of her proximity. Despite the bizarre circumstances, he couldn't help noticing the subtle floral scent of her skin or the way her silver blue hair caught the light. "I should clean and dress this," he said, his voice rougher than intended. As he gently applied antiseptic to the area, Lycia watched him over her shoulder. "Your hands are warm," she observed. "Cerulean males run cooler than females. It is pleasant." Alaric felt heat rise to his face. "Just doing my job," he said, though he knew his lingering touch was anything but professional. The Calidri chirped, breaking the moment. The creature was studying Alaric with undisguised curiosity, its tiny head tilted to one side. "It likes you," Lucia said with a soft smile. "Calidri can sense intentions. They know who is safe." "Smart little thing," Alaric replied, cautiously extending a finger toward it. The Calidri reached out and wrapped tiny digits around his fingertip, its touch surprisingly warm and strong. A connection formed in that moment, not just with the creature, but between Alaric and Lucia. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that transcended their different species. "You said we need to move," Alaric said, reluctantly pulling his attention back to their predicament. "How close are these Vexari?" "Very. They have tracking technology. They will have detected the Calidri's birth." She looked around the small clinic. "This place is not safe now." Alaric nodded, making a quick decision. "I have a rover. We can head into the mining tunnels. There's an abandoned section where the ore played out. The mineral deposits interfere with most scanning technology." "You would risk yourself for us?" Lucia asked, a genuine surprise in her voice. "What kind of doctor would I be if I didn't?" Alaric replied with a half smile. "Besides, I've been looking for an excuse to get away from setting miners' broken bones." As Alaric gathered essential supplies, Lucia fashioned a sling for the Calidri from a soft piece of medical fabric. The creature nestled against her chest, occasionally peeking out with those enormous, intelligent eyes. "You'll need warmer clothes," Alaric said, handing her one of his jackets. "The tunnels get cold." Their fingers brushed during the exchange, sending an unexpected jolt through Alaric. Lucia's skin was silky smooth, with a subtle electrical quality that left his fingertips tingling. She slipped on the jacket, which hung large on her slender frame. "Thank you," she said, then hesitated before adding, "On my world, giving clothing is an intimate gesture." "Oh," Alaric said, suddenly flustered. "I didn't mean to." "I did not say it was unwelcome," Lucia interrupted, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Before Alaric could respond, the clinic's proximity alarm beeped softly. Someone was approaching. He moved quickly to the window and peered through the blinds. A sleek, dark vehicle, unlike any colonial transport, was gliding toward the clinic, kicking up dust in its wake. "Vexari," Lucia whispered, her body tensing. "Back door now," Alaric commanded, grabbing his medical kit and a stunner from under the counter. As they slipped out the rear of the clinic toward his rover, Alaric felt a surge of protectiveness. In the span of an hour, his orderly life had been completely upended. Yet he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so alive. Lucia moved with fluid grace despite her obvious fear, the Calidri secure against her chest. When they reached the rover, Alaric helped her inside, his hand lingering on her waist longer than necessary. "I don't even know what I'm getting into," he admitted as he started the engine. Lucia's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper. "Neither do I," she replied softly, "but I am glad I am not facing it alone." As the rover pulled away from the clinic, heading toward the distant mining tunnels, Alaric knew he'd crossed a line from which there was no return. Whatever happened next, their fates were now intertwined, human, cerulean, and the mysterious Calidri that had brought them together. The abandoned mining tunnels stretched like a labyrinth beneath the colony, their walls embedded with traces of iridescent ore that cast a soft, ethereal glow. Alaric had driven deep into the network, finally stopping in a large chamber that once served as an equipment depot. "We should be safe here for now," he said, powering down the rover. "The mineral deposits in these walls block most scanning technology." Lucia nodded, her attention focused on the Calidri. The creature had been unusually quiet during their escape, its enormous eyes taking in everything with an intelligence that seemed to grow by the minute. "Something's happening," she whispered as Alaric set up a portable heater. "Look!" The Calidri's mottled skin was changing, developing intricate patterns that pulsed with a faint bioluminescence. Its limbs had elongated slightly, and its digits now appeared more defined. "That's not normal, is it?" Alaric asked, kneeling beside them. "No!" Cerulean Young developed slowly. Lucia's voice held a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "This is something else." Oh. Alaric retrieved his medical scanner from the kit. "May I?" When Lucia nodded, he ran the device over the Calidri. The readings made him frown. Its cellular structure is in flux. It's almost like it's adapting. The colibri chirped, reaching toward the scanner with curious fingers. When it touched the device, the screen flickered, data scrolling rapidly before the scanner shut down completely. "What the hell?" Alaric muttered, examining the now-dead device. "It absorbed the energy," Lucia said, amazement in her voice. "Alaric, I think I know why the Vexari want it back so badly. They weren't just experimenting with cross-species reproduction. They were creating something specific." "A weapon," Alaric suggested grimly. "Or a tool. The Vexari value efficiency above all else." She stroked the colibri's head, and it trilled contentedly. "Whatever they intended, they didn't account for one thing." "What's that?" "That it would have a soul." Her violet eyes met his. "That I would care for it." The intensity of her gaze sent a wave of heat through Alaric. In the soft glow of the tunnel, her blue skin seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, and the curve of her neck, where it met her shoulder, suddenly seemed like the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. He cleared his throat. "We should rest. It's been a hell of a day." Alaric set up a makeshift camp with supplies from the rover. As he worked, he was acutely aware of Lucia watching him, her eyes following his movements with undisguised interest. "Your species is fascinating," she said as he unrolled sleeping mats. "So physically strong, yet you move with such precision." "That's just doctor training," Alaric replied with a self-conscious laugh. "You should see me dance. It's not pretty." "I would like that," she said simply. The directness of her statement caught him off guard. "To see me dance?" "To see you do anything." A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Ceruleans value honesty." "I find you attractive, Alaric. Is that uncomfortable for you?" He nearly dropped the water container he was holding. No. Not uncomfortable. Just unexpected." "Why?" "Your pupils dilate when you look at me. Your pulse increases. I can see it in your neck." She tilted her head. "Are humans not taught to recognize such signs?" "We recognize them," Alaric said, his mouth suddenly dry. "We're just not usually so forthright about it." "That seems inefficient," Lucia observed. Alaric couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, I guess it is." The colibri chirped from its makeshift bed of soft medical cloths, drawing their attention. To Alaric's astonishment, the creature was now nearly twice the size it had been when born, its limbs proportionally longer and more defined. "That's impossible," he murmured, approaching it cautiously. The colibri looked up at him with those enormous, intelligent eyes, then deliberately reached out and touched his hand. Immediately, Alaric felt a strange, tingling sensation, followed by a series of rapid impressions: hunger, curiosity, safety, affection. He jerked his hand back in shock. "Did you feel that?" "Feel what?" Lucia asked, moving to his side. "It communicated, not with words, but with feelings, images." He looked at her in wonder. "It's telepathic." Lucia reached out, allowing the colibri to touch her. Her eyes widened. "Yes." "I feel it too. It's learning from us." The colibri chirped again, then closed its eyes, apparently exhausted by the effort. Within moments it was asleep, its chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. "A telepathic, rapidly evolving hybrid creature," Alaric said softly. "No wonder the Vexari are desperate to get it back." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sleeping colibri. The air between them seemed charged with unspoken thoughts and growing tension. Finally, Lucia spoke. "On my world, in times of danger, comfort is sought and freely given between compatible beings." Her voice was soft, almost musical in the quiet of the tunnel. "It affirms life when death threatens." Alaric met her gaze, understanding her meaning perfectly. "On Earth, we have similar traditions." She moved closer, the heat of her body radiating against his side. "Are we compatible, Alaric?" Instead of answering with words, he reached up to touch her face, tracing the delicate contours of her cheekbone. Her skin was warm and silky beneath his fingers, that subtle electrical quality sending pleasant tingles up his arm. "I think we are," he murmured, leaning in. Their first kiss was tentative, an exploration of unfamiliar territory. Her lips were softer than he expected, with a sweet taste that reminded him of wild honey. When they parted, her violet eyes were luminous in the dim light. "Your heart beats so fast," she whispered, placing her hand against his chest, like a colibri's wings. What followed was a discovery of differences and surprising similarities, a dance of two beings from different worlds, finding connection in the most primal of ways. In the soft glow of the tunnel, with danger temporarily held at bay, they found solace in each other's arms. Their shared passion, both an affirmation of life and the beginning of something neither had expected to find. Later, as Lycia slept curled against him, Alaric watched the Caledri, which had awakened and was observing them with those unnervingly intelligent eyes. It had grown again, its form now more defined, less infant-like. "What are you?" Alaric whispered. The Caledri tilted its head, and Alaric felt a gentle touch against his mind. Not words, but a clear impression. Friend. Alaric woke to the sound of distant rumbling. Beside him, Lycia was already alert, her body tense as she cradled the Caledri, which had grown to the size of a small dog overnight. "They found us," she whispered, her violet eyes wide with fear. "That's impossible," Alaric said, scrambling to his feet. "These tunnels block scanning technology. The Vexari have other methods." She stroked the Caledri's head. "They may be tracking its energy signature." The creature chirped softly, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing more rapidly. It sent a clear emotional impression to both of them. "Danger. Coming. Hide." "We need to move deeper," Alaric said, hastily gathering their supplies. "There's an old emergency shelter about 2 kilometers further in." As they loaded the rover, Alaric couldn't help but notice how Lycia's movements mirrored his own, anticipating what he needed before he asked. Their night together had created a synchronicity between them that transcended their different species. "About last night," he began, handing her the medical kit. "You regret it?" Her voice was carefully neutral, but he caught the flicker of hurt in her eyes. "God, no," he said quickly, taking her hand. "Just the opposite. I wanted to say it was extraordinary." Her skin flushed a deeper blue. "For me as well. Human passion is intense." "Is that good or bad?" he asked with a half smile. "Very good," she replied, her fingers intertwining with his. "On my world, physical connection is appreciated but rarely discussed. Humans seem to find joy in naming their pleasures." "We're a vocal bunch," Alaric admitted, feeling a rush of warmth at the memory of her whispered encouragements in his ear. The Caledri chirped impatiently, breaking their moment. Its patterns were pulsing rapidly now, and it kept looking toward the tunnel entrance. "Right," Alaric said, refocusing. "Time to go." They had barely driven a kilometer when the tunnel behind them lit up with harsh white light. The sound of vehicles echoed off the stone walls. "Faster," Lycia urged, clutching the Caledri tightly. Alaric pushed the rover to its limits, navigating the rough tunnel floor at dangerous speeds. They rounded a corner and he slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision with a figure standing directly in their path. It was a Vexari, tall and thin, with pale gray skin and large, compound eyes that reflected the rover's headlights. Unlike the militaristic pursuers behind them, this one wore simple civilian clothing and held no weapons. "Don't shoot!" the Vexari called out in accented English, raising its four-fingered hands. "I'm here to help." "Like hell you are," Alaric growled, reaching for his stunner. "Please," the alien insisted. "My name is Naren. I was chief geneticist on Project Nexus before I escaped. I know what the Caledri is and why it must not fall back into Vexari hands." The Caledri chirped and sent a surprising emotional impression. "Truth, listen." Lycia and Alaric exchanged glances. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they catch up," Alaric said. "Let him in," Sia decided, her eyes on the Caledri. "It trusts him." Naren climbed into the back of the rover, his lanky frame folding awkwardly into the small space. "There's a side tunnel 50 meters ahead that doesn't appear on colony maps. It leads to an old research outpost. We can talk safely there." Alaric hesitated, then gunned the engine. "If this is a trap..." "It isn't," Naren assured him. "I've been hiding from my own people for weeks." They found the hidden passage, little more than a crack in the wall that widened it into a tunnel. Alaric maneuvered the rover through just as the lights of their pursuers appeared around the bend. Once through, Naren directed them to push a boulder across the entrance, concealing it completely. The abandoned outpost was small but intact, with functioning power systems and basic amenities. As Alaric secured the perimeter, Lycia settled the Calidri on a workbench, where it immediately began exploring, touching equipment with curious fingers. "Remarkable," Naren murmured, observing the creature. "It's developing even faster than projected." "What exactly is it?" Alaric demanded, returning to stand protectively beside Lycia. Naren's compound eyes shifted, the Vexari equivalent of a sigh. "It's a bioengineered symbiote, designed to interface with technology and organic matter simultaneously. The project's goal was to create the ultimate infiltration tool, a being that could hack any system, absorb and process any energy source, and communicate telepathically with its handler." "And you put it inside Lycia without her consent," Alaric said, his voice hard. "Not I," Naren corrected. "I objected to the use of unwilling surrogates. That's why I was removed from the project, and why I escaped when I learned what they planned to do with the finished product." "Which is?" Lycia asked, her hand resting protectively on the Calidri, which had grown even larger in the past hour, its form now more humanoid. "The Vexari High Command intends to use it as a weapon against human colonies," Naren said bluntly. "The Calidri was specifically designed to interface with human technology to shut down defense systems and infrastructure before an invasion." "Why target humans specifically?" Alaric asked. "Because your species represents the greatest threat to Vexari expansion," Naren explained. "Humans adapt quickly, form alliances easily, and fight with unpredictable tactics. Other species can be calculated, controlled, but humans—" He made a gesture that might have been respect. "Humans are chaos factors." The Calidri chirped loudly, drawing their attention. It had grown again, now standing nearly 3 feet tall. Its features had become more defined, almost a blend of cerulean and Vexari characteristics, but with something uniquely its own. It reached out, touching each of them in turn. A flood of images and emotions washed through Alaric's mind. Understanding. Choice. "Protect. It's becoming self-aware," Naren said, wonder in his voice. "This wasn't supposed to happen for weeks." "It's choosing its own path," Lycia said softly. "Not the one the Vexari designed for it." A sudden explosion rocked the outpost, sending dust raining from the ceiling. "They've found us," Alaric said grimly, reaching for his stunner. The Calidri chirped urgently and touched Alaric's arm. An image formed in his mind. The Calidri standing before the Vexari, protecting them. "No!" Alaric said firmly. "We protect you, not the other way around." The creature's enormous eyes blinked, and Alaric felt a wave of something that could only be described as affection, then determination. "We need a plan," Naren said, peering nervously toward the entrance. "The pursuit team will be led by Commander Tarek. He's ruthless, even by Vexari standards." Lycia looked at Alaric, her violet eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights. In that moment, he saw not fear, but resolve, and something deeper that made his heart race. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "I'm grateful our paths crossed, Alaric." He took her hand, squeezing it gently. "This isn't over yet." "Not by a long shot." The Calidri chirped in agreement, its bioluminescent patterns glowing brighter as another explosion shook the outpost. Another explosion rocked the outpost, closer this time. Dust rained from the ceiling as Alaric frantically searched the communications equipment. "There's an emergency transmitter here," he said, fingers flying over the ancient console. "If I can boost the signal through the mineral layers." "Who are you contacting?" Naren asked nervously. "Friends," Alaric replied, not looking up. "The miners I treat aren't just patients. They're good people who look out for their own." The Calidri approached the console, now standing nearly 4 feet tall with a slender, humanoid form. Its skin continued to pulse with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to match the rhythm of the equipment's lights. Without hesitation, it placed a hand on the transmitter. The console surged to life, power readings spiking off the charts. "It's amplifying the signal," Naren said in amazement. Alaric quickly composed a message. "Geordie, emergency in abandoned section 12. Vexari hostiles. Need backup. Trust me, A." The Calidri chirped, its enormous eyes blinking rapidly as the message transmitted with far more power than the old equipment should have been capable of generating. "Will your friends come?" Lycia asked, her violet eyes filled with hope. "If they got the message, yes," Alaric said, "but it'll take time for them to mobilize. We need to hold out." The calidri suddenly stiffened, its patterns flashing urgently. It touched each of them in quick succession, transmitting a clear warning. "Many coming. Close." "They've breached the outer chamber," Naren translated unnecessarily, his compound eyes shifting nervously. The calidri chirped again, more insistently, and moved toward the entrance. "What's it doing?" Alaric asked. Lycia's face showed understanding and dismay. "It wants to protect us, to buy us time." "No," Alaric said firmly, moving to block the creature's path. "We stick together." The calidri placed a gentle hand on Alaric's chest, and he felt a wave of determination and affection. Then a series of images flowed into his mind, the calidri confronting the Vexari, using its abilities to confuse and delay them, while the others escaped through a maintenance shaft at the back of the outpost. "It's made its choice," Lycia said softly, her hand finding Alaric's. "Just as I made mine when I ran from the facility." Alaric wanted to argue, but the sound of approaching footsteps silenced him. The calidri's plan was their only hope. "There's a maintenance access behind that panel," Naren said, pointing to the far wall. "It leads to an emergency exit that surfaces near the colony's eastern perimeter." Alaric looked at the calidri, which now stood tall and resolute. "We'll come back for you," he promised. The creature chirped softly and sent a final impression. Family. Protected with a heavy heart, Alaric helped Naren pry open the maintenance panel. As Lycia crawled through, first he caught a final glimpse of the calidri standing before the entrance, its bioluminescent patterns glowing brighter than ever. The maintenance shaft was narrow and dark, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees through decades of dust and debris. Alaric led the way, with Lycia behind him and Naren bringing up the rear. They had barely made it 50 meters when they heard shouting and the distinctive sound of Vexari energy weapons discharging. "It's facing them alone," Lycia whispered, her voice breaking. "Keep moving," Alaric urged, though his own chest felt tight with worry. Its sacrifice won't be in vain. They emerged from the emergency exit into the harsh daylight of the colony's outskirts. The eastern perimeter was largely undeveloped, with only a few storage facilities and power substations dotting the dusty landscape. "Now what?" Naren asked, his gray skin looking particularly pallid in the sunlight. Before Alaric could answer, the ground rumbled beneath their feet. In the distance, a convoy of mining vehicles approached, kicking up clouds of dust. "The cavalry," Alaric said with a grin of relief. The lead vehicle, a massive ore hauler, skidded to a stop nearby. Geordie leaned out of the cab, his broken arm still in its cast, a mining laser rifle balanced awkwardly in his good hand. "Doc, what the hell kind of trouble are you in now?" he called out. "The kind that threatens the whole colony," Alaric replied, helping Lycia climb aboard. "I'll explain on the way." As the convoy rumbled toward the colony center, Alaric quickly briefed the miners on the situation. To his surprise, they took the news of alien infiltrators and bioengineered weapons in stride. "Wouldn't be the first time some off-world bastards thought they could push us around," Geordie said, nodding sagely. "Remember those Arcturian claim jumpers last year?" "This is a bit more serious than claim jumping," Alaric pointed out. "Same principle," another miner named Mac countered. "Someone thinks they can take what's ours. We show them otherwise." Lycia watched this exchange with growing amazement. "Your species faces an elite Vexari military unit with mining tools and jokes? That's humans for you," Alaric said with a wry smile. "We're at our best when the odds are worst." She shook her head, a mixture of bewilderment and admiration in her eyes. "On my world, we would form committees to discuss the optimal response." "Yeah. How's that working out for you?" Geordie asked with a good-natured grin. "Not as well as your approach, it seems," she admitted. As they neared the colony center, Alaric's thoughts returned to the calidri. Had its sacrifice bought them enough time? Or had the Vexari already captured it, turning its abilities against the very colony it had tried to protect? Lycia seemed to sense his concern, her hand finding his in the cramped cab of the hauler. "It made a choice," she said softly. something the Vexari never intended it to do. "I know," Alaric replied, squeezing her hand. "I just hope—" His words were cut short by a blinding flash of light from the direction of the abandoned outpost. A shock wave followed seconds later, rocking the convoy. "What the hell was that?" Geordi exclaimed. Naren's compound eyes widened. "Energy discharge. Massive. The Calidri must have overloaded." "Overloaded?" Alaric repeated, dread filling his chest. "It absorbed too much energy," Naren explained. "Became unstable. If the Vexari tried to capture it rather than destroy it, it sacrificed itself," Lycia whispered, tears welling in her violet eyes. Alaric pulled her close, his throat tight with emotion. In the short time they'd known the creature, it had become something more than an experiment. It had become part of them. "We need to warn the colony, Ishucham," he said, forcing himself to focus. "If there are more Vexari coming—" "Already on it, Doc," Geordi said, activating the hauler's comm system. "Colony security is mobilizing. They're not exactly military, but every miner and construction worker in New Prosperity is grabbing whatever weapons they can find." Alaric looked out at the approaching colony, its prefab structures gleaming in the harsh sunlight. And these were his people now, rough, direct, and fiercely loyal. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Beside him, Lycia watched the human miners prepare for battle with growing wonder. "Your kind never ceases to amaze me," she said. "In the face of superior technology and overwhelming odds, you choose to fight." "That's just what humans do," Alaric replied simply. "We protect our own." As the convoy rolled into the colony proper, Alaric caught sight of security forces establishing barricades. Civilians were being evacuated to underground shelters, while miners and off-duty security personnel distributed weapons. New Prosperity might be small and remote, but today it would show the Vexari exactly what happened when you threatened a human colony. New Prosperity's main square had transformed into a war room in a matter of hours. Mining equipment stood repurposed as makeshift barricades, while ore processors had been hastily converted into EMP generators. Colonial Administrator Aaron Lance, a compact man with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, stood before a holographic map of the settlement, directing the defense efforts with the calm efficiency of someone who'd faced crises before. "The Vexari ships will likely approach from the north," Naren explained, pointing to the map. "Their tactical doctrine favors overwhelming force concentrated at a single point." Lance nodded grimly. "Then we'll make sure that point is exactly where we want them." Alaric watched in amazement as the colonists implemented Lance's strategy. Miners reconfigured drilling equipment into sonic disruptors. Engineers reversed the polarity on magnetic ore separators to create gravity distortion fields. Even the colony's children contributed, programming maintenance drones to serve as decoys and scouts. "Your people are remarkably resourceful," Lycia observed, helping a group of technicians modify communication arrays. "On Cerulean, we would require committees and specialists for such adaptations." "Necessity breeds innovation," Alaric replied, pride evident in his voice. "Out here on the frontier, you learn to work with what you have or you don't survive." Lycia's violet eyes studied him with newfound appreciation. "Is that why you came here? To test your survival skills?" Alaric paused, considering her question. "I came because I was needed. These people deserve good medical care, even if they're too stubborn to admit it." "And now they fight for you," she said softly. "For us." "That's what humans do," he said simply. "We protect our own." A commotion at the edge of the square drew their attention. Geordi was leading a group of miners who had modified a massive excavation vehicle, its drilling apparatus now bristling with improvised weapons. "We're calling her the Persuader," Geordi announced proudly, patting the machine's armored flank. "Figured those Vexari bastards could use some persuading to leave us the hell alone." Lance examined the contraption with raised eyebrows. "Will it work?" "Only one way to find out," Geordi replied with a reckless grin. Naren approached the vehicle cautiously. "The Vexari ships have energy shields that can withstand conventional weapons." "Ain't nothing conventional about the Persuader," Mac chimed in. "We reverse the polarity on the sonic drills. Should create a resonance frequency that'll disrupt their shield harmonics." That's Actually, quite brilliant, Naren admitted, his compound eyes shifting in what Alaric had come to recognize as surprise. Don't sound so shocked, Geordie laughed. We might be dirt diggers, but we're not stupid. As preparations continued, Alaric found himself pulled into a strategy meeting with Lance, Naren, and the colony's security chief, a retired Earth Force Marine named Maddox. They gathered in the administrative building, reviewing sensor data and defensive positions. The Vexari will be here within 2 hours, Naren reported, a full tactical squadron based on their energy signatures. We've evacuated all non-essential personnel to the emergency shelters, Maddox said, his weathered face grim. But our security force is just 30 officers with basic weapons. We're not equipped for this kind of fight. What about negotiation, Alaric suggested? If we could establish communication. Commander Tarek doesn't negotiate, Naren interrupted. He considers it a sign of weakness. Then we make him reconsider, Lance said firmly. Humans have a long history of making technically superior forces regret their assumptions. As the meeting concluded, Alaric found Lucia waiting outside, her expression troubled. What's wrong? He asked, leading her to a quiet corner. This conflict is my fault, she said, her voice tight with emotion. If you hadn't escaped, the Vexari would still be developing their weapon, Alaric countered, and we wouldn't have had any warning before they attacked. But the Calidri made its choice, he finished gently, just as you did. Just as I did when I decided to help you. She looked up at him, vulnerability and strength mingling in her gaze. Among my people, to bring danger to one's community is the greatest shame. Among humans, standing together against danger is our greatest strength, Alaric replied, taking her hands in his. You're not alone in this, Lucia. Something shifted in her expression, a realization perhaps, or a decision. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his in a gesture that felt deeply intimate. There is another option, she said quietly, a cerulean diplomatic tradition for situations of extreme conflict. We call it the Unity Accord. What does it involve? A formal alliance between our peoples, represented by a bonding of individuals. Her skin flushed a deeper blue. It would give the Cerulean government legitimate cause to intervene on behalf of this colony. Alaric's pulse quickened. A bonding? You mean like a union, she confirmed. What humans might call a marriage, though with diplomatic significance. Between us? He asked, though he already knew the answer. It would need to be formalized before witnesses from both species, she explained. Naren could represent the neutral party required by tradition. Alaric studied her face, searching for any sign of reluctance or calculation. He found only sincerity, and something deeper that made his heart race. Would this just be a diplomatic arrangement? He asked carefully. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. The diplomatic benefits would be real, but my reasons for suggesting it are not entirely diplomatic. The admission sent warmth spreading through his chest. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the colony. Lance's voice came over the public address system. Vexari ships entering orbit. All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Lucia's eyes held Alaric's, filled with determination and something that looked remarkably like hope. We'll continue this discussion later, he promised, squeezing her hands. Yes, she agreed. After we survive this. As they hurried to their assigned positions, Alaric found himself filled with a strange, fierce joy. The colony faced its greatest threat, yet he had never felt more alive, or more certain of his place in the universe. Outside, the sky darkened as Vexari ships descended through the atmosphere. The colonists stood ready, their improvised weapons humming with power. Humans of all backgrounds united in defense of their home, their ingenuity and determination a force more powerful than any technology. Beside him, Lycia watched with growing wonder as the colonists prepared to face overwhelming odds without hesitation or fear. Your species truly is remarkable, she murmured. We're stubborn that way, Alaric replied with a grin. Now let's show these Vexari exactly what humans are made of. The Vexari ships descended through New Prosperity's atmosphere like predatory birds, their sleek hulls gleaming in the colony's harsh sunlight. 3 attack vessels and 1 larger command ship formed a perfect diamond formation, textbook Vexari military precision. "They're deploying ground forces," Maddox announced, monitoring the tactical display. "Standard pattern, just like Naren predicted." Alaric watched from the makeshift command center as the colonists moved into position. Geordi and his crew had the Persuader hidden behind a storage facility, ready to ambush the Vexari troops. Other miners manned the repurposed drilling equipment, now converted into sonic disruptors that hummed with barely contained energy. "Incoming transmission," Lance reported. "It's Commander Tarak." The holographic display flickered, revealing a tall Vexari with distinctive red markings on his gray skin, a sign of high military rank. His compound eyes shifted rapidly, taking in the assembled humans. "Colonists of New Prosperity," Tarak's voice was cold and precise. "You are harboring fugitives and Vexari property. Surrender them immediately and we may spare your settlement." Lance stepped forward. "This is Administrator Aaron Lance. We have no knowledge of any Vexari property. This is a sovereign human colony under Earth Alliance protection." "Do not play games," Tarak snapped. "Our sensors detected the birth signature of Project Nexus. We know it is there, along with the Cerulean surrogate and the traitor Naren." Lysaea moved to Alaric's side, her fingers intertwining with his. "It's time," she whispered. He nodded, understanding her meaning perfectly. As they had discussed during the frantic preparations, their unity accord might be the colony's best chance. "Commander Tarak," Alaric called out, stepping into view of the holographic transmitter. "I am Dr. Alaric Mercer. The being you call the Project Nexus sacrificed itself to protect us. It's gone." Tarak's compound eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Its energy signature overloaded when your troops attempted to capture it," Alaric interrupted. "But that's not why you should leave immediately." "You dare to threaten the Vexari Imperium?" Tarak's voice dripped with disdain. "Not a threat, a notification." Alaric gestured to Lysaea. "This is Lysaea Telsar, daughter of High Counselor Telsar of the Cerulean Diplomatic Corps. She and I are about to formalize a unity accord under Cerulean law." For the first time, Tarak seemed unsettled. "A diplomatic bonding? You lie." "Verify my genetic signature," Lysaea challenged, her voice steady despite the tension. "The Cerulean government takes such bonds very seriously. An attack on New Prosperity would constitute an act of war against both humanity and Cerulean." Naren stepped forward. "She speaks truth, Commander. I will serve as neutral witness to their bond." Tarak's image flickered as he consulted with someone off-screen. When he returned his attention to them, his compound eyes shifted rapidly, a sign of agitation. "This changes nothing. The Cerulean fleet is days away. We will have what we came for long before they arrive." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Well, that went about as expected," Lance sighed. "Battle stations, everyone. They'll attack within minutes." Alaric turned to Lysaea. "We need to complete the unity accord now." She nodded, her violet eyes reflecting both determination and tenderness. "It requires only our consent and a witness. The formal ceremony can come later, if we survive." "When we survive," Alaric corrected with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. They stood before Naren, hands joined, as the Vexari scientist recited the ancient words of the Cerulean bonding ritual. Around them, colonists prepared for battle, the incongruity of a wedding amid war preparations striking Alaric as perfectly human somehow. "By the laws of Cerulean and the customs of your people," Naren concluded, "you are now joined in unity. May your bond bring strength to both your worlds." Lysaea leaned forward, pressing her forehead against Alaric's in the traditional Cerulean gesture of unity. "No matter what happens next," she whispered, "I choose this. I choose you." The moment was interrupted by the colony's alarm system blaring to life. Outside, the Vexari ground forces had begun their advance, sleek, armored soldiers moving with mechanical precision toward the colony's perimeter. "Show time!" Geordi called out, powering up the Persuader. The massive machine roared to life, its modified drilling apparatus vibrating with deadly potential. What followed would later be known as the Miracle of New Prosperity in Earth Alliance records. As Vexari troops breached the outer perimeter, they encountered not the disorganized resistance they expected, but a carefully orchestrated defense that played to human strengths. Mining drones reprogrammed by colony engineers swarmed the Vexari formations, disrupting their communications. Sonic disruptors, calibrated to the exact frequency of Vexari armor, caused excruciating pain without harming humans. The Persuader burst from its hiding place, its reverse polarity drills creating a resonance field that shattered Vexari energy shields like glass. "It's working!" Lance exclaimed, watching the tactical display as Vexari troops fell back in disarray. Above them, the command ship began charging its main weapon, preparing to simply obliterate the troublesome colony from orbit. "They're going to bombard us," Maddox warned. Alaric looked at Lycia, a desperate plan forming. "The Unity Accord. Can you signal your government?" "Already done," she replied. But Tarek was right. They're too far away to help now. A sudden alert from the colony's long-range sensors drew everyone's attention. "Multiple ships entering the system," a technician reported, confusion in his voice. "They're cerulean." On the tactical display, a dozen sleek vessels appeared, moving at incredible speed toward New Prosperity. "Impossible," Naren breathed. "The nearest cerulean outpost is 3 days away at maximum speed." Lycia's face lit up with understanding. "The Calidri! It must have transmitted a distress signal before it sacrificed itself, using cerulean diplomatic frequencies it found in my genetic memory." The lead cerulean vessel transmitted directly to the colony and the Vexari ship simultaneously. A dignified cerulean male, his skin a deeper blue than Lycia's, appeared on screen. "This is High Counselor Telsar of the Cerulean Diplomatic Corps. Our sensors confirm a valid Unity Accord has been registered on New Prosperity. Any hostile action against this colony will be considered an act of war against the Cerulean Confederation." Tarek's ship immediately powered down its weapons. Even the Vexari Imperium wasn't prepared to face both human ingenuity and Cerulean military might. Within hours, the Vexari forces had withdrawn from the system, leaving behind damaged equipment and wounded pride. The colonists celebrated their victory with typical human exuberance, a hastily organized party in the main square that combined victory celebration with wedding reception. "Your father seems to have accepted our bond rather quickly," Alaric observed as they watched High Counselor Telsar conversing amicably with Administrator Lance. Lycia smiled, her violet eyes twinkling with mischief. "He's been pushing me toward diplomatic service for years. A Unity Accord with a human colony doctor probably wasn't what he had in mind, but he's adaptable." "Like father, like daughter," Alaric murmured, pulling her closer. "The Calidri knew," she said softly. "Somehow it knew this was the path to peace." "It gave its life for that possibility," Alaric agreed. "We should honor that sacrifice by making the most of it." As the celebration continued around them, Geordi approached with 2 glasses of the potent liquor the miners brewed in their off hours. "To the doc and his blue bride," he toasted with a broad grin. "Never thought I'd see the day when setting a broken arm would lead to saving the whole damn colony." Alaric laughed, accepting the drink. "Life's full of surprises." Later that night, as they stood on the balcony of Alaric's small apartment overlooking the now peaceful colony, Lycia traced the contours of his face with gentle fingers. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Alaric replied, drawing her into his arms, "we build something new. Together." As their lips met under the alien stars, Alaric reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. It had begun with a frightened alien girl and a strange lump on her back, and had somehow transformed into a future brighter than anything he could have imagined. In the distance, the lights of cerulean ships twinkled alongside human vessels, a visual representation of the new alliance born from crisis. And somewhere, Alaric liked to think, the essence of the Calidri lived on, in the bond between species that might never have found each other without its sacrifice. New Prosperity had lived up to its name after all.